There was two guys at a computer and they were like, oh, that guy's dead. I bet he loves it up the butt. And as I was walking behind them, I was like, I love it up the butt. There's a whole new world up there, baby.
I was missing out.
I'd just come out as being a queer male, but I was in a straight presenting relationship. So there was a lot of queer people that threw some shade around like, you're not queer enough to talk about queer stuff.
Right, yeah.
People were like, oh my God, everything that you shared about that blew my mind. It's like, I can't wait to go home with my partner now. I'm mourn. So every like couple of weeks.
Yeah, me too. Like sometimes I'll be on my photo album and like a memory of Sexpo will come up, or I'll see someone like reposting something from Sexpo and I'm like, oh. There was one time where like I was busting to go to the toilet and I just couldn't because I was like, so literally for like 2 hours, I was like on one end of trying to creep my way over to the bathrooms, but kept getting pulled aside by photos. I was like, I just want to piss, please. This episode of the Cat and Mark Show is brought to you by our sponsors, Raven Management. Raven specializes in accounting and financial services for the adult industry. But if you're not in the adult industry, then they can still do your taxes and your financial services as well. You know, I've been saying this for like a few weeks now. I feel like
you're good at it. I like the tonality.
No,
yeah.
I don't know. I feel
You're
like I keep
it.
fucking it up. But
yeah.
Anyway, so today on the show, we have a very special guest, Luke Skewes. Am I saying your last name right?
Yeah,
Luke Skewes, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're a intimacy/relationship coach, and you've also done a lot of work at Sexpo, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been working as an intimacy and relationship coach for the past 7 years, and been running the sex education stage for Sexpo, rest in peace, for the last 5 years, like Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth. And was going to be Adelaide, but unfortunately Adelaide missed out.
Yep.
But I've been working in the sex work industry for a long time, supporting sex workers, and really enjoy supporting couples and individuals to experience more pleasure and connection in their relationships.
That's awesome. What got you into this? Like, how did this all start out for you?
Well, long story. But I'll keep it short. I started off as an electrician. In my career, and then did electrical engineering, and then moved into mental health and addiction support after having my own little journey with mental health and addiction, and started working in that space. And over the couple of years that I was working in that space, I noticed that there was a lot of people that were coming back in, relapsing through mental health and addiction issues, and their reason for their relapsing or their triggers normally had something to do with sex, love, or relationships. And whether it might have been the relationship with their mother, their dad, their brother, their ex, or a sexual experience, or, their heartbreak experience, that was their reason for just going into these poor coping mechanisms. And for the years that I worked in that space, it felt like I was just slapping Band-Aids on. Helping people for a little bit, send them out into the world, something bad would happen, and then they'd be back. And so I went and restudied sexology, relationship counseling. Like I became a bit of a training and certified junkie around what I could do to try and like go to the cause and then work backwards to, the relationship that they had with themselves and how they could cope with the world around them.
That's really cool. So essentially you worked with a bunch of people that had an addiction and you realized that, okay, this addiction, this isn't the problem. This is just basically the symptom, right? Like there's other things going on here and they're just using addiction to cope with whatever's 100%. Underlying.
There's this saying in therapy that the problem's never the problem.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And so, I just saw that the problem is normally something to do with like the relationships that they had with themselves, which still does filter into sex and relationships. With how we can express our boundaries and, our desires and fantasies and all of that sort of thing. But often when people are in the shit, you can't say to them, you're the problem.
I mean, you could. It just wouldn't be very professional though.
Yeah, you just need to learn to love yourself, or, you need to learn to cope with the world around you better. So you go to their projection of the problem, whether it is love or sex or relationships, and you work on that and then you work backwards and, you get them out of the problem enough that they can see the writing on the wall.
Cool.
So did you notice a trend that a lot of these issues stemmed from intimacy and sex, and then is that then what made you want to explore that like further?
Yeah, totally. And it's always something that's like fascinated me. I've always been like a highly sexual person interested in eroticism and tantra and, you know, relationships and communication. And even when I was an electrician, I would always get like my tires pumped up by my bosses saying, you're such an amazing communicator, and, you know, you connect with people so well. And it just became, there was just this light bulb moment of, I don't think I want to be a gold medalist electrician.
Yep.
I think these skills that have made me a good electrician, I really want to put into the things that I love. And I love love. I love sex. I love intimacy. And I love watching people, you know, experience the relationships of their dreams.
That's amazing, man. So when did the interest in the eroticism start? Because it sounds like you were dealing with people with addiction. You realized there was an underlying problem that was due to like love, connection, understanding oneself. And you said there was always like this, I guess, passion in yourself for sex and eroticism. How did that start getting involved, and where did that journey kind of begin for you?
I guess at that point in my life, I had just gotten out of like a 10-year relationship, and was living my hot boy summer as well, and started a relationship with somebody who was in the coaching world as well, and really encouraged me to like step into what I was really good at and what I enjoyed. And we had started like open relating, so I was kind of like opening myself up into new paradigms of intimacy and relationships and connections as well. So yeah, it was kind of just like this like beautiful cauldron that, you know, all of these bits and pieces came in for me to be like, all right, yeah, I think this is my future. That's awesome.
It sounded like the path really aligned for you. Like there was all the causation things that kind of led you on this journey, from the addiction, getting into your, sounds like 1,200 certifications that you got, and then ended up dating someone that's kind of in the space too.
Yeah, and they just gave me like that permission slip, like, you know, yes, you're an electrician, but you're also really good at other stuff too. And obviously there's, you know, I guess for me, being a rugby boy growing up, you know, being a tradie, there was some holdback, there was some stigma between going into like sex, like from a tradie into sex and relationship coaching. But, you know, I just had some really amazing people around me that were just really encouraging for me to get into that.
Do you feel like you did deal with some imposter syndrome there? I think it's like a hard thing to be able to come out and say like, okay, I think now I'm going to teach this intimacy thing or this sexual thing. And it's, I guess there's a voice in your head that's all like, are you good enough for this, or why this? Did you feel like you faced a little bit of that as you got into it?
Oh, I don't know. I think I've got this undying confidence in myself that I can do whatever I want to do.
Nice.
And, awesome. You know, people often say when I like speak on stage, like I have other guys come up to me and they'll be like, how the fuck do you do that? Like, how can you be so confident? And I don't know what it is, but when I've got a brainworm, then often I just run at it. Perfect. I did get a bit of slack, you know, on social media from people that knew me from that former life, being like, you know, who do you think you are? Like,
really?
You know, yeah.
Oh, they're just jealous, probably.
Yeah, got some major shade on the gram.
Really?
In my early days, yeah.
What type of things were people saying? Just like, what do you think you're doing?
Was it like electrician friends or something?
Oh, you know, there was some, you know, electrician friends, some rugby friends. There was some people in the community that I lived in at the time that hadn't really realized the storyline for me to get to that point where I'm like, hey, I'm doing this thing and I'm going to present myself as this on social media. And I started a podcast with my ex-business partner at that time as well. And yeah, there's just some jealous Janes out there that get a bit spicy, because we were like, at the time I was talking about my journey as well. Like I'd just come out as being a queer male, you know, but I was in a straight presenting relationship. So there was a lot of queer people that threw some shade around like, you know, how dare you talk about, you're not queer enough to talk about queer stuff.
Right, yeah.
Which was interesting.
Did you find it tough to find like an identity there? Like you weren't queer enough to be queer and you weren't like straight enough to be straight or something, it sounds like? Or what?
Well, I think I could see that coming through and recognize it. Like, yeah, I can see how that might be triggering for somebody who's lived as a queer person for their entire life and, you know, had to go through the social dynamics of being a queer person for me to, you know, all of a sudden pop out and say, hey, guess what? I'm queer, but I've also got a girlfriend. But I'm also, you know, going down this path of open relating and being queer. And I could see how challenging it might be for them, but I also realised that there would be a huge demographic of people out there that were probably living a similar experience to me and would enjoy the conversation. So I don't know. So you kind of got to let it slide for the people that don't enjoy it, and the people that do enjoy it, lap it up.
Yeah. I mean, did you face a similar thing? Like, did you have people from, it's weird saying like past life, but did you have people that you knew, like, let's say school friends or uni friends that were kind of like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Did you face that or no?
I don't really talk to too many people from my old life, I don't think. I had like one friend from when I was in accounting, because prior to doing this, I worked in accounting, and majority of the people that I was friends with were like my fellow accounting friends at the time. And then obviously you guys as well. And you guys were all for it, obviously. I had like one of my friends from accounting that, we're not friends anymore because she just couldn't accept it. But all my other friends were like pretty cool with it. But yeah, in terms of like school friends and like high school friends and stuff, I don't really talk to many of them anymore. We've drifted after school and after high school because I was doing other things and they were doing lesser things.
What did your tradie friends, because if we think about stereotypes, right? Like I think if I think of tradies, they're probably the group of guys that have the most, let's say like stigma around this, or like, the wrong information around, I guess, what you'd be teaching or what you're doing. Like, did you face much backlash from them, or were they supportive of your journey?
To be honest, the tradie guys were probably the most supportive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because like in the early days, I actually started going out to mine sites. Yeah. And I guess like to answer one of your previous questions around like, how was it just stepping into that? Because I'd kind of been working on the side hustle in mental health and addiction support for such a long time, I knew that I was helping people, even if it was going to trigger some people. Yeah. I was like, I don't give a fuck. I know that I'm helping people. But I went out into some of the mine sites and ran some like communication workshops, some intimacy workshops, because some of the trading.
The mining sites. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And, because tradies are sometimes, like you said, some of the guys that are most stuck. And, they're just working their ass off, and they're not connecting with their partner. They might be having conflict with their partner. They might not be having much intimacy. And, whilst I was still working as a tradie, and I still do a bit of trade work now, I have those conversations in the vans with the guys. They're like, oh, so what do you get up to? And I was like, well, actually I do this, and this. Or I remember being in the office of this trade company that I worked for one day, and there was two guys at a computer, and they were like, oh, that guy's a dickhead. I bet he loves it up the butt. And as I was walking behind them, I was like, I love it up the butt. There's a whole new world up there, baby.
You guys are missing out.
And so like, I don't know, I was just like unabashedly myself in those spaces, and the tradies have been really supportive.
That's awesome. And I think honestly, there's probably a part of it where they see you lead that, and you've been in their job, like you've been a trader and you've been there. I think that's a lot probably easier to connect to than, hey, let's talk about communication intimacy with some, let's say, therapist that they might see like in an office with like a suit, or someone that they just like feel like can't relate to. So that actually might be helpful.
Is there many queer tradies? Like, I don't know if that's a silly question, but like, I don't know if you see that many, do you?
I think I see them. Like,
maybe.
Like we were having a conversation before before we started the recording about like when you work in different industries, you get like you see the flags and the signals. Is I think I see them when they're around, and I give them a little wink and a nod. And,
I see you.
I see you, baby. But like because I've been talking about like my life and my relationships and my experience on podcasts. Like people just know, they know me and they know my story. So I have found a fair few like tradies come up to me and say, thank you for talking about what you talk about. And
100%.
So I think there's probably more out there than what you think.
Yeah. There you go. Interesting. And I'm curious, how did you then get into doing Sexpo? Did you?
I just, Belinda Gavin, one of the organisers, reached out to me and asked me to apply. I've got no idea how she found me, but asked me to apply many, many years ago. I put an application form in, recorded a video, and the first year that I did it, I was just one of the speakers. And I don't know if you know Robbie Oz at all.
Yeah,
we've had him on actually.
Yeah, Robbie Oz was the MC that year for the Sex Ed Stage, and he got a really sore throat during the weekend, and he asked if I could fill in. and like, don't tempt me with a fucking microphone.
You'll never be able to take it off me.
Don't tempt me with a microphone.
And then you just never gave it back to him ever.
Well, he got crook. So like for an entire day I was emceeing the stage and I was like, oh, this is like fucking cocaine to me. Yeah. And then for the rest of the weekend we shared it. Over the weekend, and I guess the Sexpo organisers got to see me in that space as well as being a speaker. And Rob disappeared off to Thailand for a couple of years, so I kind of like slotted in.
Yeah, so it was good timing. Yeah, to everybody listening who's not familiar, so with Sexpo there used to be a stage. Well, obviously the Sexpo's not around anymore, which we might touch on in a little bit. There used to be a stage called the Sex Ed Stage, and Luke was the MC of that stage. I spoke on that stage with you a few times. That's kind of how we met, actually.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, which was fun. Rest in peace. And so to everyone, Sexpo, everyone listening, I've just mentioned, so Sexpo is currently not around anymore. But
before we get to that, I want to know, like, what is the Sex Ed Stage about? Like, I've never been to Sexpo. Someone that rocks up, like, it sounds like you're speaking for a few days. Like, what are you actually talking about? What are you discussing? What are you doing up on stage?
Yeah, so when Sexpo relaunched just after COVID, the owner at the time really wanted to bring some conversations around conscious sexuality and sex education, because like in the olden days, Sexpo was kind of viewed as just like a big dildo swap meet.
Okay, yeah.
Like, that's where you'd go and get your cheap vibrators or, whatever.
Is that what it, like, did you ever go back in the day?
My mum went.
So did mine. So see, I never realised that Sexpo had been around for a long time because when I told my parents that I was talking at Sexpo, they were like, oh, we went to that.
Let's go.
In the fucking whatever it was, 90s or whatever the hell it was around. And I was like, really? It was around that long? Yeah, apparently it's been around for forever.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time. So, Kevin was like really wanting to bring some conscious sexuality and some education into the space. So, like the first time that it happened after the relaunch, got some amazing educators and speakers in. And then once they kind of handed the baton over to me to start organising it, I would find speakers and educators and performers to come and do some talks, and I would normally do 2 talks a day over the 3 days. It's a long fucking 3 days, as KATIJA can.
Oh my God, it's
like being in a casino for 13 hours, 3 days straight. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh, and there's just so much talking. I mean, you would know as well because you do a lot of talking on the stage. I do a lot of talking off the stage. Yeah. Just everyone that just wants to come and talk to you. And I remember there was this one time where, did you see me on the day that Kay and I were wearing the angel wings?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Oh my God, biggest mistake ever. I've never been that cool dressed ever, because there was one time where like I was busting to go to the toilet and I just couldn't, because I was like for 2 hours, I was like on one end of Sexpo trying to creep my way over to the bathrooms, but kept getting pulled aside by different people for photos and this and that and video and interview. And I was like, I just want to piss.
Oh my God. I get the same thing as well.
Well, because you're on the stage, so everyone would be like wanting to ask you things.
I'm talking twice a day, so you try and go and have a slash, and every 5 minutes someone's going, I appreciate it, don't get me wrong, but people are like, oh my God, that everything that you shared about anal sex, that blew my mind. It's like, I can't wait to go home with my partner now. Or, awesome. I'm talking about, blowjob techniques, and, people like stopping me. I'm like, I just really have to fucking piss right now. Yeah. But I mean, the cool thing is about the stage, I guess, is that like people come there for Sexpo, they're going to want to meet a porn star, they want to get photos, they want to probably going to see some naked people, and they come into the sex education room, and there is a bunch of people that come there purely for the sex ed stage.
Oh, yeah. I actually, the first few times that I went to Sexpo, I was actually shocked at how many people were actually coming to the stages and like listening and sitting through the whole thing and really engaging and asking meaningful questions as well. Like they were actually genuinely interested.
Yeah, and a lot of the content creators end up in there sitting down as well. Like Coco Bay, you have Kay Manuel, have yourself like coming in and, getting some education on things. And, some of the amazing things that were at the most recent Sexpos were like Kink 101 with the amazing Mistress Eros, and there was shibari demonstrations. I was talking about anal play, penis pleasure anatomy. There was people talking about dom and sub like dynamics.
There was a sploshing.
There was a sploshing demo.
Yeah,
there was
which I know Coco and I'm going to forget her name. I feel really bad right now. Coco and someone else did a sploshing thing, and it was didn't they like rub cake all over themselves?
Yeah.
Like
and there's wax play education.
I've been trying to get you to come to Sexpo for ages, and you just never.
I've just been away every time.
Every time there's a Sexpo, he's overseas, just without fail.
Yeah. One of my favorite things at Sexpo is the panels. So
that's one of the things
where
that I'm doing.
KATIJA gets involved in, and you get like a panel of people from all different flavors of the sex work world. And, whether they're content creators, dominatrix, like sex educators, and the crowd just gets to ask the burning questions that they've always wanted to ask these people.
That's cool.
And some of the real conversations that happen on the panels on the Sex Ed stage have just been like mind blowing.
That's times. Awesome. Damn. And now it's all gone to shit, apparently.
Yeah. So I know. I want to talk about some of the Sexpo secrets. That's
what's happened. Where has it gone?
It's gone into, I guess, a pause, or I'm not sure whether it's gone into liquidation at the moment, but there's chat around the traps that I really don't know enough information about to talk with any sort of authority on. But I'd say I would imagine someone's going to try and buy it and relaunch it again because it's too big a brand. Like it's got too big of a name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've heard.
I haven't been to one yet. So
I feel like legally I'm probably not allowed to say who, but I've heard whispers of a couple of people that are wanting to buy it and bring it back. And I think someone will. I think there's a lot of people that are interested in this industry and that want to be a part of it, even though they're not a part of it. Like, does that kind of make sense what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there's a lot of people that are interested in the industry, but they don't want to actually do the sex work, but they want to like be.
They want to support.
They're just interested in it, and like so, for instance, like Maxine with the awards, because Maxine, I think she owns a strip club, but she's not actually in the she's not actually a sex worker, but she like loves sex workers. She knows a lot of them. She has a strip club, and then so she runs the awards as well, sort of thing. So. I think somebody will be interested.
Someone will just see the financial benefit in like people love sex.
Yeah. Is it profitable? Sexpo though, was it? I mean, I don't really know. I don't really know the organisers or anything. But actually, it would be profitable, right?
I couldn't really comment on it, but any business can be profitable if you do it right.
Yeah.
Like there's, I'm sure there would be some way to make it happen.
Like sponsorships, they could do like affiliate deals with it. I'm sure like it'd be a good opportunity. And like what you were speaking about before, like there's probably a lot of people that go there for one reason and then they leave with all the knowledge that you're actually speaking about. So I think it's like an amazing opportunity to hit like, let's call it like mainstream. Like I think as you said, your parents went to Sexpo, like a lot of people know about Sexpo. You can get a lot of people there and now they're exposed to it in a way that you're not just like facing the stigma from the outside of like, oh, sex work is X, Y, and Z. They can really like speak to the people, they can get the education. I think it's like a really amazing thing to have. So hopefully someone picks it up.
I mean, each and every time I like finished a Sexpo in a city, I would get approached by brands.
Yep.
Like, whether it was a lube startup or like, a toy company or something saying, hey, can we sponsor your talks on stage? So there's surely there's money out there.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. As you said, you just need to do it right. And I'm sure there'll be people out there. I hope so. I want to go to one.
Yeah,
I hope so too. Like I mourn Sexpo every like couple of weeks. I think about it.
Me too. Like sometimes I'll be on my photo album and like a memory of Sexpo will come up, or I'll see someone like reposting something from Sexpo and I'm like, oh.
I mean, one of the things that I miss the most about it is like catching up with my sex positive homies. Like it's one of the only times, each year that I get to like catch up and have a yarn with like the other sex positive people of the world that are, trying to, awaken people's senses and, bring sex work and the taboo out of the darkness into the light so people can, get that permission slip.
I had ordered a custom made outfit for Sexpo. Which, I mean, it's because I ended up calling the girl and I was like, you can just put it on just whenever you've got time, you can finish it. It was like a very expensive custom fit that would have been quite intricate. And then, when I found out it got cancelled, I called her and I was like, because she was like rushing. She's like, hopefully I can finish it in time. Yeah. And I was like, honestly, I was like, just whenever you have time, you can finish it. I don't need it for anything anymore now.
I'd say you would not be the only one that's probably had a similar experience.
I know a lot of people that were getting like outfits and things made. So
damn, well, next, I don't know, Halloween costume.
Yeah, I know, that's what I said. I was like, just when you finish it, that's fine. I'll use it for a photo shoot one day, maybe.
You could work it into, like, say, some of your clients and be like, hey, have you ever really wanted to, have a session with somebody that might wear like a white angel wing costume?
Yeah. Exactly.
Because I could get that made for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just
if you wanted to pay for it.
Custom video. Yeah.
True. Yeah. You have 5 clients paying for you one thing.
Yeah, that's funny.
Let's go. All right, look, I want to ask more about your intimacy coaching, or like relationship coaching. I don't know how you prefer to term it, but what type of clients do you get with here? What do you work through them with? Like, what do they come with you with their problems? Yeah.
I mean, it can be a broad spectrum. Like anywhere from like couples or individuals. It might be people that are wanting to, say, step into some more kink or BDSM or fantasy like play, and they want some confidence and some competence around it. Like they want the how to be able to play in those spaces safely. It could be, I get a lot of couples who are deeply, deeply in love and have a really amazing relationship, but they just want it to be as great as it possibly can. And they've got the motivation to spend money to create that. And a lot of the times you're working through like communication tools, conflict resolution, consent and boundaries, then like pleasure techniques, non-sexual intimacy is a big part of it as well. Because, you find a lot of people will come to me, wanting the hots, the sexy stuff, but you got to start with the foundational. Like if you're in a long-term relationship with somebody and you might have all of these dirty flavors that are running through your mind, but if you're not communicating very well, if you haven't got that trust and safety within the relationship, then a lot of the time that curiosity for play might not be super available. So working a lot around like the basics of intimacy. Cool. Because I think like in my mind, like if there's safety and trust within a dynamic, then that's when the curiosity can be birthed to be able to play more. And I think like being able to communicate really, really well builds the connection, and then with the connection, that's when the intimacy flames can burn away. A lot of couples that have been together for a long time, I see a lot of men as well, they try and find the safety through the intimacy. Like if there's enough of intimacy available in the relationship, then everything's cool. We're all good. But when they go chasing the intimacy without the communication and the connection tools, then often that's when you have shit sex and you feel even more disconnected from yourself or your partner because you've skipped the communication and the connection pieces.
Cool. So it's almost like going back to what you said before, where like the problem's not often the problem. Do you find that you have a lot of guys coming in just being like, I just want better sex, just fix the sex part. And then it's more of just unwinding a little bit and being like, let's fix the communication part or the trust part. And then we can work on like the how of the sex or the better sex or the better
100%. Yeah, you said it perfectly. Or there'll be a lot of people coming in saying, hey, there's a libido mismatch here. And that's like, that'll be 50-50, whether it's the guy will be like, I just haven't got the libido, or the other partner will be saying the same thing, and they'll have spent a period of time getting rebuffed. Like one person's the chaser and the other person's the runner. And they get to a point where the person's been pushed away so many times that they're like, oh, fuck, I'm just not going to try anymore. Or the other person's like, I really hate pushing them away. I want to have intimacy, but I just can't get there. And that's when you move into like the tantric practices, breath work, eye gazing, non-sexual intimacy. There's lots of amazing games that you can play with couples. Like there's a really amazing game called the Bossy Massage game, which is...
Bossy Massage? Can you tell us about it? What's the Bossy Massage?
The Bossy Massage is a game that me and lots of other practitioners will get couples to play in like, tantric temples or just in their own bedroom. So like say one person... we'll say KATIJA is the bossy receiver.
That makes sense. She's, perfect. So you'd be good at this.
So it would be KATIJA saying, I want you to touch me on this part of my body with this type of touch for this long. So it might be like you have the agreement of like, 3 breaths. So you might say, hey, I want you to like just give me some light finger touch, some air touch across my shoulder blades, and I'm going to lay down, and I want you to do it just between here and here for this long. And then once you like say she says 3 breaths, I do it for 3 breaths. I pull my hands away, and then the bossy massage receiver gets to say, keep going with that, or I'd like you to now give me some firm touch on my shoulders and my arms. And so they're in control of the intimate touch that they're receiving. So because in relationships a lot of the time, the thing that holds people back from like engaging sometimes in intimacy is like, I really want to engage with my partner when they've come home from work, but all I really want is just a cuddle and a kiss. But I'm worried that if I give them a cuddle and a kiss, then they're going to get a boner, and then they're going to be like, trying to tear my panties down and take me. And so the trust isn't there to be able to do it. So the bossy massage is just like a game where one person is deciding on what touch they're willing to receive. The other person also gets the opportunity to say, yes, I can give that to you. Or could you ask for something else? So it's just like a bit of a game to create the trust that the intimacy that you're wanting is the intimacy that you're going to get.
Cool. Yeah, I like the idea of the boundaries and the structure there, because I think, as you said, as a guy, I think like a lot of guys might find it difficult to like ask, what do you want? Because it kind of makes you feel a little bit like, well, I should know, right? A lot of guys feel like they have to be like mind readers. Like in the bedroom, if I have to ask what the girl wants, then I'm probably not good in bed. So being able to like take that away with the pressure and being like, no, you can ask, right? And the girl can tell you what she wants, or it could be like vice versa, obviously. So having that, I think it removes a lot of the barriers that it usually you face like without any structure around it. So I think that's kind of nice.
And it can sound clunky, and often it is a little bit clunky at first, but anything worth doing really, really well is worth doing like a bit clunky at the start. Because once you start to read that person and get to know their body, get really being really, really good at consent as a male is one of the sexiest fucking things out there. Like, would you like it if I? Would you like it if I? Would you like it if I? Could I please? Like, compared to just like,
unless it's cat and she bought. Talk about that later.
Free consent, so that's a bit different.
Like I call this. Sometimes I speak to my students about like having like alignment sessions. So it's not only about this, but you can start to identify. Not only what does she like, but how does she respond to that? Because you might, to what you said, like the light touch on the shoulder for 3 breaths, the girl could turn around and say, actually, like that felt a little bit too firm. Would it be okay if you did it like a little bit lighter? And then you can look back and see, oh, when I was doing it, she actually like pulled away a little bit. So now I know that pulling away is probably like something that she doesn't enjoy as much, because like it can be hard. Like if you're eating a girl's pussy out and suddenly like they're squeezing their legs together, that could be like a too sensitive bad thing, or it could be like a lot of pleasure, great thing. And so just having that moment where you can get some feedback, it can be outside of like expectations around sex or, feeling competent. It can just be like, okay, let's just have this session, this game. I like that term, where it's just finding out, okay, like what does she like? What does she do? Or vice versa. So I think it's really nice. Yeah.
I highly encourage couples. It doesn't even have to be a couple. If you've got somebody that's willing to have a play with you so that you can learn more about your body and, what you like and what you don't like, then rather than like putting the pressure on it, being a mad bang sesh, if you've got the time, have a little play party with some, like there's lots of these different games. If anyone wants to know more about them, then hit me up. But have a play party where you just get to play with something that you've always liked to try. I've got this really awesome thing that I've got called the intimacy hit list, where I've gone through and made a list of like all of the sexy acts that I could possibly think of, and I'm constantly adding more. And what I get people to do is go through this list, and it starts off with like kissing, touching, massage, all the way down to like pissing, golden showers, choking, all of the different flavors in there. And I'll get couples or individuals to go through and put like a yes, maybe, or a no next to each one. And then if they're with all of the yeses, write them down on little bits of paper and put them in a jar. That's your green jar. That's any day. I'm happy to do that any single day. The maybes, put that, and that's your orange jar. So if you have got a bit of time to be able to play and get some curiosity and see whether this might be something that you might like, with somebody that you feel safe to play with. You know, that's the rainy day stuff, you know, when you
got nothing to do.
Yeah.
And to everyone listening, you can absolutely book an escort for a play party.
That's true.
Well, you know, that's a lot of people do experiment with escorts because there's a lot of, you know, I don't want to say like normal girls, but like non-sex workers are, from what I hear anyway, less inclined to do some of the crazier stuff. I don't want to say all of them, but like sometimes that they find it hard to do.
Yeah, well, I just think like it's so much easier when there's that transaction. You can have more of that structure. So I think like if you go see an escort, you can have that structure where you can sit down and be like,
you can ask for something specific.
Okay,
you can't invite a Tinder girl over and then be like, hey, actually, I want to try anal.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm going to stick it in your ass. Whereas with an escort, you can message her and you can't say to a Tinder girl before you've met her, hey, I might want to stick it in your ass tonight. Is that cool? Because you're not going to be seeing that girl.
I'm sure that is getting thrown around there on the flight pit at part of the time.
But like with an escort, you can literally list out, I want to try XYZ ABC, and then they will say yes, no, whatever. And then you can then know immediately coming in like, oh yeah, I'm going to get to try some anal today.
Yeah. Honestly, I can't wait for you to talk to Mistress Cyrillus about this, exactly what you're talking about, because, you know, there's sex workers out there that is the absolute shtick is like having people bring their, like the things that they're curious about experience in playing with and helping them bring that to life.
Oh, mine is fingers up the arse.
Yeah.
I talk about it on the show all the time, and I get so many clients that like listen to the show and they're like, yeah, I want to try this. I've never wanted to try it, but hearing you talk about it on every episode, I want to try this now. And I have stuck my finger up so many people's asses.
We actually don't post any podcasts unless she mentions it. So
so this one's going
TikTok,
up.
It's going up.
It's it's like my brand is fingers up the arse.
I like fingers up the arse too, people.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, there you go. So Luke is pre-consenting to the fingers. And anyone, Mark as well. Which
Settle down.
He won't let me stick my finger up his arse.
No. You know, like you're talking about like attunement to your partners and their bodies. You know, the best people that I've probably found that are the best at that is like high-end escorts, sex workers.
Doing arse stuff?
No, like attuning to people.
Like understanding what they want, how
understanding what they want, watching how their body responds, you know, consent, boundaries, like coming up with agreements before the bookings, you know, all of that sort of stuff is, I think people think that it's just like a, you know, this debaucherous world where anything goes, but sex workers or people in the sex work industry, you know, content creators, like the amount of agreements and boundaries and consent and, you know, physical safety, health is like, it's next level.
Yeah. It's not as Wild West as what people think it is. Yeah. There is a lot of checks and balances that go into all of it that people don't see. You know,
and we're kind of joking about the Tinder thing, but I think like that's why it's good for everyone to be able to like learn, even if it's just like a little bit about this. Like you don't need to go into like the open relating. You don't need to go into like the crazy BDSM, like we're talking about, like getting pissed on. But like that first phase where it's just like figuring out what each other like where your boundaries are, like the jars. And like, even if you just access that, sex will be so much better for all of these people. And you can like, you know, I hope for the day where you can meet a Tinder girl and you can sit down and be like, okay, like what are you into? What do you like? And there's no judgment there and you kind of like figure it out. Unfortunately, I think right now you can do that to a small degree and you can build up on that over time. But yeah, I'd love for it to get to a point where everyone is knowledgeable about this and there's less shame around it, where you can just meet up with, you know, someone and talk about this. I think that'd be really cool.
I think it's like, when I think about the girls that I've dated, like related with over my life, in my adult life, one of the most attractive things that I've found with women is when they tell me what they like and what they don't like.
Yep.
And it's like, cool, I've got a roadmap.
Yep.
I can work with this. This is great. And then even hotter is they're like, I remember a girl that I was dating hit me up once and she was like, oh, you know, tell me about what your fantasies and kinks are. And I like shit myself. I was like, you know, late 20s. And I was like, oh, you know, just this, you know, everything that we're doing, you know, like missionary, doggy, turbo doggy, you know, that's all I think about. And they were like, cool. Is that your laptop over there? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you want to open your porn history and tell me if that's what you've been looking at?
I love this.
And I was like, and she was like, all right, I'm going to stop you there. This is my fantasy. This is my kink. I've always wanted to try this. When I have a wank, I think about this. And she just laid it out. And I was just like, whoa, that's...
Did you play it down when she asked you, or did you actually tell her?
When she asked me about the laptop, I was like, oh fuck, and like I was probably in my mind thinking, is there a padlock and a chain around somewhere where I can like lock that up and peg it out the window before anyone gets to it?
True.
But then she just laid it all out on the line, and it was like an incredible permission slip for me to be like, I was like, all right, erase what I said before. I am a filthy motherfucker. Like I think about this. I want to try this. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then we had this really cool discussion around what some of those fantasies and desires we might be available to try together, or the ones that we're just happy to live up in the, you know, in the wank bank, in the brainworms. And that was like, I don't know, that was a game changer for me when I had met this person that was so confident to be able to be like, I got all of these dirty thoughts that run through my mind.
Yeah, and I think guys as well, like, so I think so, because there's been a lot of studies where like girls are asked for like, you know, their fantasies and things, and their answers are always much raunchier and dirtier than what people would think from girls. And I think guys generally think like, oh, you know, I can't tell my girlfriend that I want to do X, Y, Z because she's going to think that's dirty. But I would say like majority of girls are into some kinky shit. They just don't want to, they don't want to say it and scare their partner off. So I think like a lot of the time, when there is that communication and you ask, the girl is probably thinking of just as dirty things as what the guy's thinking of.
100%, yeah. And like in my studies over the years, like I've done a lot of studies around kinks and during like studies on sexology, kinks and desires and all of that. And some of the most common kinks for women are some of the ones that they'd probably be most scared to tell their male partner, like, you know, multiple dicks.
Yeah, gangbangs, that's a big one.
Rape fantasy is a huge one. You know, kidnap, like, you know, being bound and, you know, like being degraded sometimes. And they're the things that, you know, sometimes they might be terrified to say to their partner because then their partner's like, oh, shit, I've been doing the complete opposite to that. I've been giving you oil rubs and lighting candles and running you a bath.
And I think there is a little bit of that like Madonna whore complex type thing where like I think a lot of guys need to have that unlearning phase, which is like, oh, this is actually completely normal for a girl. And she can be, you know, you can use the term like good girl, right? Like she can be a great mother. She can be good marriage material. She can be very loyal and still have all of these like kinks and fantasies. And I think like a lot of guys coming with that judgment that as soon as they hear a girl have these fantasies, they become very insecure that, oh, well, okay, this girl is very promiscuous then, or like she's not very loyal. And they come up with all these presumptions where, as you said, like these are super common fantasies. Like it's normal for everyone to have like some type of like sexual desire that, you know, might feel very shameful, but a lot of people have them and it's very normal. So I think, there's a stage where I think, you know, people need to be more open about sharing fantasies. And there's also a stage where there needs to be less judgment about like receiving the fantasies as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it's not for everybody. Like not everybody's super comfortable with having the conversations. I think the people that I attract into my life are normally the people that love having these types of conversations. Like my lover and I talk about like our kinks and fantasies and desires and the things that, you know, our clients, you know, book us for. And I genuinely love it because there would have been a time in my youth where it would have just made me so fucking uncomfortable to have these conversations with a partner, and it affected my sex life. You know, it affected my performance in the bedroom because I'd say that I was probably holding some shame and some guilt around, you know, one, not being honest about the things that I genuinely desired to experience in the bedroom, and two, probably knowing that my partner had some desires that I wasn't, you know, hitting the mark on because I hadn't created the safety to have for her to be able to have those conversations with me. And when I think back to those days, I really wish that I could have a conversation with that younger Luke and just be like, dude, start talking about sex more in the kitchen, outside of the bedroom.
Just feel more comfortable around it.
Yeah.
So when you say, you mentioned clients, like are you talking about coaching clients or are you also doing some escorting as well?
Yeah, like coaching clients and under a completely different banner from my coaching business, I do sex work sessions as well under a completely different name.
Okay.
Is that like escort services? Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And this started years and years ago. I had somebody from the sex work industry come onto my old podcast and they were, you know, talking about their 30 years experience in the sex work world. And at the end of the podcast recording, they said, like stop recording. They're like, Luke, you need to get into this. Like with all of your studies, with all of your knowledge, all of your experience. And she's like, and I've seen your dick before. Like you
qualified. You're in.
You like that. And at that point, she was like, there's not one single male escort in Newcastle where I lived. And she's like, you got a captive audience.
Yep.
I'm sure you'd be good at it. Give it a crack. And my partner at the time had been saying the same thing for a couple of years. And she was like, see?
I told you. Yeah.
And so by that afternoon, was up on the sites, was doing the things. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's my main shtick. But when people come through with the right level of communication about what they want to experience, then I love facilitating people's like growth into their dirty fantasies and desires.
Do you do like more tantra kind of stuff? I feel like you would be like a tantra kind of vibe.
Like I'm a trained dom as well.
Oh, really?
And a shibari master. So
your sessions would be pretty interesting.
Well, they're broad and ranging. Like there's a broad range of women who are sometimes middle-aged, maybe they've been through a bad divorce or they've been parenting for a really long time and they're in like their sexual reawakening stage and they don't really want to fuck around with the fire pit of Tinder. They want somebody who's confident, competent, relatively good-looking and trained so that they can experience pleasure and like relaunch themselves back out into the world of being a sexual being. I get a lot of that. I'll get a lot of males who, stepping into their curiosity around their sexuality. And again, they don't want to fuck around with Grindr. They want somebody to have maybe their very first experience for it to be a really nice experience.
Oh, wow. Okay. How's that for you actually? Sorry to interrupt, but how's that for you to have someone come in and be like, I want this to be like my first experience?
Well, it actually feels like a real blessing.
Yeah.
You know, I feel very grateful when people trust me to be able to have that because it can be a really big thing for men or women to step into something like that. The other side of it will be people that are wanting to experience more fetish and kink stuff, like dom and sub situations, all sorts of fetish, kink, BDSM. And again, they want somebody who's trained and knows what they're doing. And
So I'm sure it would depend on the client, but for you, what is your like favorite thing to be able to facilitate? Because it sounds like you've got a broad, let's say, range of skills or like dynamics you ought to like take people on a journey through. For you, what's your like favorite thing to facilitate?
My favorite thing to facilitate is whether it be like an event, a couple, or like, in coaching or in a sex work session, what I absolutely love facilitating is somebody being courageous and like vulnerable enough to say, hey, this is what my experience has been so far and this is what I do want to experience and to facilitate them stepping into that.
Awesome.
And like watching their growth.
That's really cool.
I don't really care whether it's in a bedroom, whether it's in a big workshop space or whether it's over Zoom in a coaching session. That my favorite thing is just watching people just be fucking brave and run it a new experience.
That's really cool. It's awesome. Yeah. Do you do many of your sessions over Zoom? Like for me, I know like it can be very difficult, right? Like I'm sure you prefer like in-person coaching, right?
No, I actually do like Zoom sessions. And I've actually done like a fair few like sex work Zoom sessions as well, where, you might be doming somebody or taking them through a self-pleasure practice over Zoom. And what I like about Zoom sessions is that sometimes there's a lot of people that will feel more comfortable getting vulnerable and being brave when there's like they're in their own space, they're in their own place. And there's just like a filter between you and them.
Fair.
I find most men, even in coaching, they want to speak face to face. They want to be sitting on the couch across from their therapist.
That's what I prefer. When I'm coach, I prefer the person. I really struggle sometimes over that Zoom and having like that. For me, it just feels like a little bit of disconnect. But I can see how to be more comfortable for a lot of people.
It opens me up to a broader range of clients.
Yeah, true.
Obviously, like Newcastle's kind of a small, big city.
Yeah.
So people from all around the world can work with me over the screen. But I do love being able to sit I've done lots of podcast recordings over Zoom, and this is how much better is this?
This is 10 times. We've given up a lot of time.
We did the virtual ones for a bit, and it's not as much of a vibe.
Yeah. Even just between us, like we did a few where it was just like us chatting, doing a podcast when I was like in Europe for a while, and it's like the latency, it's such a headache.
Like technical issues and everything. Yeah.
Nightmare. But yeah, it's so much better.
There's like the level of attunement there.
Yeah,
and you can really get the sense for somebody's personality.
Yeah.
When you're sitting,
body language and all that.
All of
100%.
that. Yeah.
Alrighty, well, dude, thanks so much. Did you want to ask anything else?
No.
Yeah, dude,
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I love having these conversations, and I love that you guys are creating such juicy conversations for people to be able to listen to with such a broad range of guests. So thank you for doing it.
Oh, cheers.
Thank you. And everyone listening, pray for Sexpo, please.
We're coming
pray
back.
for the return of Sexpo, and hopefully you can see me and Luke on one of the Sex Ed stages in the future.
Hell yes.
Yeah, hopefully.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And how can people contact you? How can they find you? You got like a website or Instagram people can...
So the best way for people to find me is normally through Instagram.
Yep.
It's just at Luke Skewes, LUKESKEWES.
Yep.
At times you might have to type the whole thing in because Instagram daddy gets shameful. Shame.
Yep.
But also in saying that, if you do send me a message on Instagram, just be careful around the language that you might use through the DMs, because that can trigger Instagram daddy sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I get so many people try to book me through my DMs. Seriously.
Yeah, sometimes.
I don't know on what planet people think booking an escort, like Instagram is the best place to book an escort. Like, I'm just going to DM you on Instagram to make a professional booking. Like, get out of here. Yeah,
but like without giving, like, I've got a website, I've got all the things, but the easiest way, go on Instagram, jump on the link tree. There's links to everything that I do on there. And again, if you want to reach out and have a chat, then slide into my DMs, but just be polite.
Appropriately, yeah.
I just want to, before we get off, I just want to show everyone. Okay. This is the most boy.
Oh, shame.
This is the most boy thing I've ever seen. This is Luke's water bottle. It's an old tomato sauce jar. Is that what it is? I think it's from tomato sauce.
That's exactly what it is.
This is the tomato sauce my grandma uses. Like,
next week I'm going to be
shape.
coming with one of those now.
Any wog knows this shape. They know this tomato thing. And I know, and I cried laughing when I seen it, because I was like, this would be something Mark would do, but
100%.
his would be a glass milk jar,
it would be.
for sure.
Next week it's coming.
Look, if losing drink bottles was an Olympic sport, I would be a fucking gold medalist.
I lost my drink bottle, so I just thought I'll just use this old tomato jar.
That's right. Well, I'm on my third pair of AirPods, so if anyone has a way to make sure my AirPods don't get lost, let me know.
Oh my God.
But yeah, we'll pop your details up on the description as well, so people can just click on that and find you.
Awesome.
There. So,
no worries.
Again, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Peace.